So Vicente Luque versus Rafael Dos Anjos is set to be the main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas 78 in the Apex. And there is one big, massive X factor going into this fight that is making people lean towards picking Dos Anjos to beat Luque, and that is his brain hemorrhage. Not too long ago, there was some news that came out about Luque having brain bleeding. Is that the right term for it? I don't know what it would be scientifically or how you would describe it, but he has a brain hemorrhage, which is bleeding in the brain, and that has made people worry that Luque might be towards the end of his career, that he might not be able to fight for too much longer, that we even might see our first ending of a person's career, but career as in their entire lifespan. I can't really get specific on YouTube, but we might see the first live on ESPN, broadcast of a person not getting up from a KO. Let's put it like that. Not getting up after a fight. They're down permanently. And that could be very well the case for Vicente Luque against Dos Anjos. Now, in all honesty here, I don't think that this will be too big of an issue. If we're being honest here, I think Luque went back to the doctors. I think he talked to some professionals. And I think if it was unclear, if it was somewhat in doubt that he would eventually not get up from a KO ever again, if it were to happen, I think he would retire. But maybe Luque is that kind of guy that wants to go out there and leave it out on the line. If he goes out like this, he lived a perfect life. His dream was fighting in the UFC. And if he goes out like that, then it was well worth it. He might have that sort of mindset going into this. But I think if it was truly on the line, if it was all or nothing literally for Luque, I think he wouldn't go out there and fight Dos Anjos this weekend. I think he just called it a career. So overall, I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal that Luque had this brain hemorrhage. Now, he might be a bit different. He might not be as willing to take damage or to go in there and have a war. But I think when you're fighting a guy who's an old man like Rafael Dos Anjos, who isn't, he's 38 years old, who isn't the biggest power hitter or power puncher in the UFC right now. He mainly grapples a lot. I think Luque kind of feels a bit more safe taking this matchup. If he was fighting a guy like maybe a Jeff Neal again beforehand, or maybe he was fighting a Shafkat or somebody, or Hamza, I don't know, somebody who hits hard at welterweight, I think he might be less enticed to take this matchup. But Dos Anjos is at the end of his rope as well, career-wise. He's 38 years old again. He's mainly a grappler, not really a power hitter, coming off a KO, actually a grappling win against Brian Barberena, but before that a KO loss to Rafael Fiziev. I think Luque kind of has this one somewhat in the bag if he comes out staying the same Luque as normal. If we see just the genuine Luque comes out there and just bangs and defends takedowns and lands hard power hitting shots, I think he has a high chance of putting out RDA in this matchup. But again, that X factor, that brain hemorrhage is a huge deal. It's a massive deal, and he might not be able to be the same guy. But he's taken almost a year off. He's taken time. It's not like he's rushing back in there after just having this news recently announced. If this was came out like a month ago that Luque had a brain hemorrhage and that he's fighting Dos Anjos still this weekend, I would probably pick Dos Anjos to win, because I think that he would actually genuinely probably not survive against RDA, because literally not survive. But it's been almost a year. He's taken time off. That I don't know if brain hemorrhages heal like that. They might. I don't know the health risks that he's taking into this, but I think that's probably had time to heal if it does heal, and he's ready to go. I think he's genuinely just ready to go and ready to fight RDA. And what does RDA really have to offer Luque on the feet? Not much. Luque really struggles with guys who can really threaten the takedown, and I don't see RDA being a smaller guy, because he always goes between lightweight, back to welterweight, back to lightweight. He always is fluctuating in between, so he's not the biggest welterweight, obviously. So I don't think he's going to have that takedown threat that a Bilal Muhammad had against him. And I think if he does try to shoot a double leg or a single leg against Luque, he's probably going to stuff it. Now, Luque does tend to struggle against guys who have a good, solid takedown threat, and he's not as active. He's a bit hesitant on the feet when that happens, but I don't think that we're going to see RDA really take advantage of that on the feet either way. Again, RDA is that kind of guy right now who's at the end of his ropes as well. He's 38 years old. I mean, even against Fiziev, he couldn't take Fiziev down, which I think he has probably better takedown defense than Luque. But I think Luque just overall is not going to be too intimidated by the game of RDA. And in terms of, who has a better chin right now, I think it's Luque. Luque took some massive, I mean, absolutely haymakers off Jeff Neal, and he hung in there, man. He hung in there for the most part against Jeff Neal, even though Jeff Neal was kind of landing some hard shots on him and rocking Luque multiple times, and then eventually having a sick uppercut to like multiple uppercut combination KO. Luque was still taking those shots. He was getting dropped, he was getting rocked, he was getting hurt all the time in that matchup, but he was still taking solid shots. But then as soon as Fiziev landed pretty much one good, I believe, right hand against Dos Anjos, he went out cold. He went down. If you watch that finish from another angle, RDA was pretty much out cold. At first, I was like, this is probably an early stoppage because he only landed one punch and RDA was kind of defending himself. But if you watch another angle of that KO, RDA was out cold. Like, he was genuinely done, out of that matchup, completely out of that fight. Absolutely. So I think if somebody's getting KO'd in this fight, it has to be RDA. And if he can't really establish a solid takedown threat, which he might be able to, but if he can't really establish a solid takedown threat against Luque, maybe by getting a double leg or maybe even trying to get trips, I think RDA's keys to victory here is not shooting a traditional double leg or single leg. It's by getting Luque up against the fence, up against the cage, and trying to get outside and inside trips. And if he can't do that, if he can't succeed in his game plan and trying to take down Luque and establishing that takedown threat, I can just see Luque just not teeing off on RDA, but just landing the better shots throughout the entire 5-round fight, and maybe even possibly landing a solid KO blow within the first 3 rounds. Again, we don't know. Maybe RDA suddenly just hurts Luque at one point. Maybe that damage against Jeff Neal was so much, it was so apparent, and maybe RDA can crack Luque and send him off to the Shadow Realm permanently, but I just don't see that. I just see Luque just putting it on him, just landing better shots. We'll see RDA have success on the feet. We'll see him probably have a little bit of success grappling wise, but I just see that Luque just overall doing more damage throughout this entire fight as compared to what RDA will do to Luque throughout the entire fight. So I'm taking Luque. I probably will take him by maybe first or second round KO. I'm saying a right hand, probably an overhand right maybe, that will actually send RDA back to the Shadow Realm and probably effectively ending Rafael Dos Anjos' career. RDA is a legend, man. He's been in the game for a long time. Obviously a former champion in the UFC. I wish him nothing but the best, but I think he is taking a bit of a not a bad matchup, but a bit of a hard matchup is what I would say against Vicente Luque. Luque also has a 6-inch reach advantage against RDA, which is kind of massive in this deal. He's also a lot bigger. He's apparently 3 inches taller. Luque is 5'11" and RDA is 5'8". And I mean, even though Luque's come off a loss, man, Bryan Barberena is not a great win. It isn't. RDA was able to take him down with against the cage with inside trips, and yeah, it's Bryan Barberena. He's basically a fat middleweight. He fought Makhmud Muradov at middleweight just recently, and he just has nothing to him. He has no muscle mass. He's basically a skinny fat guy, but more fat than skinny. Bryan Barberena isn't that good. I know Bryan Barberena had Luque rocked, or he hurt Luque at one point in their matchup, but that was so long ago. And I think Bryan Barberena right now is he's not anything to be scared of at welterweight, at middleweight, overall just in general. Bryan Barberena is not this world beater of a guy, and if you do beat him by grappling, it's not the most credible in my opinion. Like, it's a good win, it's a win, but it's not like it's he's beating a top ranked welterweight or a top ranked guy or somebody who has an up and comer has a lot of hype behind him. There's not really much to Bryan Barberena. And I know losing to Jeff Neal and then before that losing to Bilal Muhammad, but I mean, Luque has beat some great guys. I mean, he beat Tyron Woodley, he beat Michael Chiesa by Darce choke. Like, he is the truth at welterweight. He was a former, I believe, top 5 guy at one point as well. Like, Luque has all the talent in the scale. He's also 31, so he's still kind of in his prime. Like, Luque isn't like old and washed up and not good as he used to be anymore. He's still that kind of guy at welterweight. He's just taken 2 guys that I believe are probably his 2 worst matchups at welterweight. I think Jeff Neal and Bilal Muhammad are the two guys that are absolutely problems for Luque, and they didn't really expose them. They just have the style necessary to beat Luque, and I don't think, again, that RDA has the style, the willpower to really put away Luque and beat him. But overall, I think Luque gets this one done. Hopefully his brain hemorrhage is nothing too serious as we think it is. Hopefully it's just a stigmatized word in our eyes. It's just something that sounds like it's bad, but it's really not as bad as it sounds. But I think Luque gets this one done within 2 rounds. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching this video up to this point. You know, I surely do appreciate it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon as well for notifications. Luque gets it done in the first round by KO, or maybe second round by KO. I'm out of here, guys. Peace.